Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Today I have the amazing Lynya Floyd joining us. Lynya is the senior media coach for Selena Sue's Impacting Millions program, where she works with entrepreneurs, coaches, and experts to elevate their status using the power of media. She has helped clients land stories in media outlets like Forbes, Fast Company, Entrepreneur on Fire, and more. Lynya has nearly 2 decades of experience working in the media as an editor at magazines including Glamour, Essence, Family Circle, and 17. And as a journalist, her articles have appeared in national publications like Money, Prevention, Cosmopolitan, and Fitness. She has also been featured as a health expert on the Today Show, the Dr. Oz Show, the Doctors, Fox, NPR, and more. When she's not helping her clients put a megaphone to their message, she is ghostwriting books and working as a nationally certified integrative health coach in New York City. Thank you so much for being with us today, Lynya.
Thank you so much for having me, Tiffany. I really appreciate it.
And oh my goodness, just reading that is amazing because you are so multifaceted and have so much background. And I've had the pleasure of working with you.
My pleasure.
Yes.
It was my pleasure.
So I'm just so grateful for you. I know it's going to offer so much value to the people here. And, Selena has had an interview on the summit as well. But why I asked you specifically come on is because you're like this behind the scenes amazing expert with all this knowledge. And so just let's share even more value for people.
Yes, let's do it. Let me pull back the curtain for all of your listeners and viewers.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're going to talk about how to use the power of publicity specifically to grow your brand, since I'm a brand expert. And really these two pieces of the puzzle coming together, I feel gives people superpowers in their business.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so, first of all, before we dive into the tips and the tactics and the juiciness that people are going to want to apply, I would love for them to learn a little bit more about you because, as you said, you've had decades of experience. And I would just love to hear a little bit more about your story, how you got involved, how you went with health and how you became a ghostwriter and working for all these amazing publications.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So my journalism career it started way back actually at the Associated Press. I was working for a wire service doing stories, like multiple stories every single day. But then I transitioned to magazines. I've always been fascinated by magazines. When I was a kid growing up, my family had all these subscriptions and you would lay them out on the, coffee table or you'd lay them out on the dinner table. And I just was always so excited about magazines, was thrilled when I got my first subscriptions to like YM and 17 and
Oh
all
my gosh.
that.
I totally remember 17. Oh my gosh.
Totally. And so that has always just kind of been a fascination of mine. But, once I graduated and I still have this passion for journalism, I realized I can work at these places and I started applying. I got my first job at Glamour magazine, and that was
Cool.
absolutely as amazing as anyone would imagine it to be. And I had these incredible opportunities to work in lots of different departments, right? I worked in their articles department. I got to interview Barbara Walters and like other celebrities. I worked within their finance department and I got to write stories about money. And I just kind of like moved around. But what I loved working on the most was health stories. I just loved the fact that health was this one place within magazines where you could not only change people's lives, but you could also save people's lives, all through the power of the media, all through the power of the written word or the spoken word. And that to me was like a superpower. And so I just dove in completely when it came to health journalism, and every publication that I worked at afterwards was focusing on health and speaking to women in particular, but women at different stages in their lives. So I worked at 17, speaking to young girls. You can imagine the kinds of emails that we got and the questions that we got
Oh
from
my
teenagers
gosh.
around health.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Totally working with different demographics. I worked at Essence Magazine as a health editor there, and just being really super passionate about getting those messages across, not just about physical health, right, but also about mental health and emotional well-being, which is so important for entrepreneurs, right? When we put that on the back burner, everything can blow up for us.
Totally.
And it's important for everyone, but particularly for entrepreneurs. And so as I just progressed from magazine to magazine, I found myself feeling really great about the impact that I could have reaching millions of people, literally with every single issue, every single article, being able to reach millions of people with the promotional work that I did for the outlets that I worked for, being on the Today Show multiple times, being on the Doctors, being on NPR, being able to reach millions of people with the sound of my voice was amazing. But I also kind of craved this one-on-one connection with people as well. And I am one of these people who I consider myself an introvert with extrovert tendencies. And so
Got it.
I had been speaking to, and interviewing people who were saying that they were health coaches and life coaches, and I just got more curious about that. And I did some research. I found a program that I really liked at Duke and went through certification there, got my national certification, and was able to really meld these two things that I was really passionate about, this incredible passion that I had for health journalism, but also this passion that I had for helping people one-on-one with their health and well-being. And when I got into this world of health coaching was actually when I met Selena and found out about Impacting Millions and all the incredible work that she did. And that's when it kind of clicked in my head when I realized, wait, people don't know that they can reach out to me. People don't know they can pitch me story ideas. People don't know that I'm sitting at my desk trying to come up with ideas every single day and kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel some days and not having ideas. And so I got to know Selena a little bit more, started working with her, and then she brought me on to work on Impacting Millions as their senior media coach, and it has just been amazing ever since then. And the thing that really strikes me about the work that I get to do, or makes me excited about the work that I get to do, is people don't realize the incredible ideas that they have inside of them. A lot of people that I work with, whether it's Impacting Millions or whether it's the one-on-one coaching that I do with clients that come through Selena, they don't realize that they have this treasure trove of ideas inside of them. And one of the things that I love doing is helping pick those ideas out of them and shape them and form them and package them and say, okay, here's your idea. Did you know that this would be great? This would be great. Maybe you could frame it this way. Let's twist it a little bit. Let's target it for this audience. And, this could be a great message for you to get out there. And it's very similar in the passion that I have for health journalism and being able to change people's lives and save people's lives. The amount of incredible story ideas that come out of the clients that I work with and the students that I work with is just really overwhelming. I have yet to sit down with a client or a student and just be like, wow, there's nothing there. That never happens. It never happens.
That is so good to hear, because I honestly kind of felt that way myself. I'm like, well, there's so many people already speaking about branding, like with all of us, we think that, because especially I could imagine in health, right? There's so much out there and there's so many different health coaches, but everyone, it's the same thing I say about branding. Everyone is unique and you do have a specific message. And I think that when we just sit by ourselves, my famous saying of you can't see the label when you're inside the bottle, it's like, I don't have anything special to say. So I love that about you. And you have helped me personally in getting those ideas out there that I was like, I don't know if that makes sense or if it's good enough.
That is one of the things that I'm most passionate about doing, just helping people look at their ideas from another angle, or helping to pull those ideas out of them, because we really don't realize it sometimes. There are so many people out there struggling. We know what our customers' pain points are, right? We know those things, we research those things, or if we haven't yet, we should be, but most of us already have, right? And those pain points are real. And sometimes it just takes a 600-word article, right, to help somebody's perspective just shift the slightest bit And then not only gets them excited about their lives, but it gets them excited about you and the way that you can impact their lives, right? And
Mm.
that gets them moving forward and saying, okay, well, maybe I want to download this freebie from their site. Maybe I want to work with them one-on-one. Maybe I want to do this online course with them. But there are a lot of limiting beliefs, that I didn't realize until I started working with Selena and working with clients that people have around approaching the media. And so one of the things that I really like about, telling people what I do and how I work with individuals is simply the fact that, like, it's just me. It's somebody who looks like me sitting in an office somewhere trying to come up with what their 5 stories today are going to be, or what their 5 stories this month are going to be, or who their 5 podcast guests are going to be this week. And you are actually helping them.
That's such an amazing
You're not
reframe.
distracting them. You're not bothering them. You're not being annoying. If you do it properly, right? In Impacting Millions, we teach people the proper method. If you do this properly, you are helping and supporting them, and it's a win-win for both parties.
So good. So good. And yeah, I think it's amazing how many people, myself included, did not realize that. So that's one of the reasons I asked you to speak about it today. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So yeah, let's keep it going. So what are some of the other, I think that's the main thing, just having that mindset shift is a mistake, but what are some really big mistakes that you see people, doing when they are pitching themselves to the media? So once they get over that hump of like, okay, I'm ready to pitch.
Yes.
Yeah. What could they avoid?
Yes. So there are a couple of biggies that I'm going to throw out there. And there's a bit of a laundry list, right? That's why we have a whole year-long course where we explain everything to everybody. But I'll throw out a couple of biggies that really just, like, everybody, I see this very often, and I want to encourage people to avoid. So one is not like following a format when you pitch different publications and just kind of throwing the kitchen sink and everything into your email, right? You've got your long bio and your short bio, and here's a ton about me, and just like a little bit about what you think that they might be interested in talking about, and not having some kind of structure to that email. It should never be something that's like more than a page long. It should never be something that starts out me first, then you, right? That's like a big mistake that I see people making. And the reason for that is you're knocking on somebody's door who doesn't know you, and you're trying to get them to open the door, right? And if you want to do that, you have to give them some compelling reason to open that door. You can't just bust out and say, hey, I'm really, here's a ton about me, and I'm just really interested in building a relationship for you. You have to explain to that person what's in it for them. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate when I explain to people, like, the formats of these letters. The most important thing is the subject line of the letter, subject line of the email. And so many people consider the subject line like an afterthought. And I'm always driving home, like, your subject line has to be amazing. It cannot be an afterthought. That is the knock. That is where you are creating that connection with someone and giving them the value of opening up that email. So you have to make sure that it either references some way that you know this person, if you do. And the funny thing is, people discount a lot of the ways that they know people, right? If you were at somebody's book signing, you met them. You talked to them for 30 seconds to a minute. If you went to a conference and you heard someone speak and you shook their hand after they got off stage, or you gave them kudos after they got off stage, you met that person, right? So you have some kind of connection. Use that. And a lot of people discount the connections that they have to individuals. The other thing that I recommend to people about that subject line, which is so critically important, is to just use the title to your story, right? The title to your story is clickbaity enough, is sexy enough, is intriguing enough, then it's going to get the person not only to read the story, right, when it eventually gets published, but it's also going to get the person to open up the email when it pops into their inbox.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah. So really focusing in on, having the right format for that letter, being really intentional about the subject line, and being very you first, then me when it comes to that opening opening paragraph, right? To really draw someone in and create that connection. And not having it go on and on with your multiple bios and all of your accolades. You know, you really, the focus here is, I've got this gift for you, right? I've got this great story idea, or these great story ideas for you and for your readers. And I know this is going to be perfect. I know people are hungry for this information. I see it with my clients. I can see it in the results of my online courses or what have you. And here's what I want to share with them.
That is so helpful. And like you said, I think people probably overthink it and like, oh, they need all this information. And so, oh yeah, it's been such a blessing, like you working with you on that too, like the subject line in general. Like you really do need to think about it like an email subject line or headline, and crafting that probably means more than everything else. So
yes, it is. So it is the most important part of that email. And we think a lot about that with our email lists, right? And we're trying to come up with fun headlines, fun subject lines that get people to open up our email so that, you know, our open rate goes up. But this is just a little different. It's like shifting your mindset just a little bit, thinking like, what's going to be like the great newsy, clickbaity headline that is going to get them to open up this email. One other thing that I do want to throw out there as a big mistake is not following up. So I have lots of clients and people that I work with who will say, yeah, I reached out to them and I didn't hear back, so I guess they weren't interested. And that's another way that I want to kind of pull back the curtain again on what's happening behind the scenes at these different outlets. I mean, when I was sitting at my desk working in magazines, I would get hundreds of emails a day, right? And it's not just people who are pitching me story ideas. It's PR people who are pitching me. It's my boss who is reaching out to me. It's my colleagues who are reaching out to me. It's spam. It's IT telling me that I need to change my password again. You know, it's so many different emails that are coming into your inbox. And there are hundreds of reasons why someone may not have gotten back to you yet, even though you pitched them, you know, an hour ago, right? Which is sometimes the mentality that we get into, right? We're like, I just sent the most perfect email. How come they haven't opened it and replied back to me immediately? I did this all the time as a freelancer. I completely know how that feels, right? And so what you just have to remember is, again, you're helping them out with a nice, gentle follow-up, because they could have opened your email and then got distracted because their boss was calling them on their phone. Or they could have opened your email and got distracted because there was breaking news and they had to shift to do something else. Or they could have forwarded your email to a more appropriate editor and they just didn't have a moment to follow up and let you know that somebody else may be in touch with you. There's so many different, or they could be on vacation. The story that I love to tell is the very first story that I pitched to a magazine way back at the beginning of my career. I was so convinced. I was like, this story is perfect. I have the perfect story. I have the perfect outlet. Why hasn't this person written me back? It's been a week. And then it was 2 weeks and I would do these follow-ups and I wouldn't hear anything back. And so finally I picked up the phone, which I don't recommend actually, because it's very rare that people pick up the phone these days. But at that point I was just like, you know what? I just want to know, I'm just going to be bold, pick up the phone. And I called her and she actually answered the phone.
Wow.
And it wasn't funny. I was just like, oh my God, wait, I
wasn't expecting that.
Message. Exactly. I was like, nobody answers the phone. And she said, oh, Lynya, I know you. I got your emails. I'm so sorry. I've been, I can't even remember what continent she was in, but she was on an international photo shoot. And she was just like, I haven't been in my office for quite some time, but I remember getting your email. Can you contact my assistant and set up a time for us to talk next week after things die down a little bit? So there are so many different reasons why you shouldn't give up, and you should follow up and make sure that, you know, that something didn't come up, that something else just didn't get in the way of you being able to make that connection.
Such a good reminder, because I think, yeah, again, it's like the bugging thing. I don't want to bug them, or they must have thought it was a horrible idea, but chances are they just didn't even see it.
There's so many reasons why someone may not have gotten back to you. So many.
Makes sense. So yeah, just on top of that, what would you say are some of the easiest steps to take to actually start, now that people are comfortable, we know the mistakes, how does somebody start approaching the media?
Absolutely. Great question. All right. So here is my favorite tip to share with people. And it's the easiest thing that you could possibly do. I call it the lazy girl's guide or the lazy guy's guide to getting publicity, is signing up for a newsletter called Haro. Are you familiar with Help a Reporter Out?
Yeah.
So helpareporterout.net is an incredibly amazing website. You sign up as a source. And what happens is when people sign up as journalists like me, I recently used Haro to find some great sources for a piece that I wrote for a magazine. Journalists will go here and they'll say, I've already got a story idea. I'm already working on something, right? So you, as the source, you don't even have to think like, okay, let me come up with some ideas. Like they've already got the ideas. They're just looking for amazing quotes and amazing content to share with people. And so if you sign up for Haro, it's free. You can decide how many times you want to get these emails. And I do recommend getting them more frequently rather than less frequently. And then you can just go through, you can pick what segment of or what specialization you want to focus on, right? So if you're just focusing on finance, you can just get the finance digest. If you're lifestyle and health, you can get that digest. Business and technology, you can get that digest. And then you're just going through and you're looking through to see which of these story ideas that a journalist is working on could I actually help them with? You know, can I speak to these particular topics? And then you reply back to them via email with your suggestions. And then you wait to see if you connect up with them. And so for me, this is just like the easiest thing ever, right? As a journalist, but also looking at individuals who want to get easy publicity, this is a really nice, easy lift because you don't have to do the work of coming up with the story ideas. You can just
and you know they're
go.
Actively looking for help too, which is amazing.
Yes. Once again, coming back to that idea of like, they need your help. They're posting these things because they need your help with the story and they're on deadline. All of these requests have deadlines. Their story is due on Friday. Their story is due on Monday or what have you. So they need the information to come in and they're looking for stellar advice and they're looking for outside of the box advice. One suggestion that I do want to impress upon people, maybe you've been on Haro, but maybe you haven't had success before. And I have worked with clients on that as well. They'll say, oh, I signed up for Haro, but I haven't heard back from people. Again, I didn't hear back, right? And this is not a follow-up tip. That's different. You know, if you're pitching somebody, that's different. And I do encourage people to follow up. But if you haven't heard back from Haro, one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is that they think they're answering the question that the journalist on Haro has posed, but they actually aren't. And so one of the things that I recommend that people do is read through the Haro request, write your response, and then read through the request one more time before you click send. And I know it sounds very intuitive and people are watching this and they're thinking, of course I'm going to answer the question that they asked. But if you really think about it, it doesn't always happen. Even sometimes you'll notice if you watch people being interviewed on television, and I work with clients on this as well, watch how often somebody is asked a specific question by a journalist, but they answer a completely different question, right? And maybe it's the question that they wanted to answer in their mind. Maybe it's the question they were prepared to answer in their mind as they were preparing for this interview. But there's a complete disconnect between those two things. It happens all the time on live television, happens all the time on podcasts, and it happens all the time when people reply back to these Haro requests. So just give yourself a little refresher before you click send and make sure that you were answering that question asked and not the question that you wanted to answer. I've worked with like so many people who try to pivot and they're like, this is a great idea for a story, but what you should really be talking about is blah, 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 blah. And journalists do not care about that. They are on
Especially if they're on a deadline,
on deadline, they already have their assignment. They're trying to pull, 200 more words into this story with great quotes and great experts. And you saying, instead of doing that, you should do this, right? They're not interested. They're going to be on to the next. So make sure that you give them the answers the answer to the question that they're looking for, and make sure that those answers are stellar and just like truly stand out outside of the box, not going to be the thing that maybe 20 other people who respond to them are going to offer up as well. And I also say this as somebody, as a journalist who has put out Haro requests and has gotten emails back, and I'm like, that's not what I want to talk about. That's not what I was about. Or you can't help me. Or I'm talking about diabetes and you want to talk about heart disease. No.
Two different things. Oh my gosh. That's so good. And I'm, again, just so grateful to have you on here talking about this, because you guys, like, look at how amazing and nice Lynya is. This is the person, just every time that you're pitching, just picture Lynya and you'll be fine. They're not some big, scary person that's, difficult to get to and whatever. Like she said, they need your help, but you've got to do it right. And that's why, for me, Impacting Millions was like the best thing I've ever done because I got to work with you. But also just knowing the rules and knowing the right way to craft these messages. And, I landed Forbes was my first article. Like, who can say that? That's pretty amazing.
Awesome. It was a great story.
Yes, it was a great story, but I really don't think I would have been confident enough or gotten it without going through the course and understanding how to pitch and then, talking to you. So yeah, it's just, it's not as difficult as it seems, but you need to do it right. So
absolutely. It's like education is this huge piece of the puzzle. And everybody says, right, knowledge is power, which it absolutely is, as long as you take those next steps and move forward with it, right? We want to pair that knowledge with action. And that's, such a big part of what we do in Impacting Millions. We give you all the tools. We're pulling back the curtain. Here's what's happening behind the scenes. Here's how you have to structure all this information. Here's how you prepare for a podcast. Here's how you interact with editors. Here's how you follow up. And now let's do it. Let's get into action, right? And I just love we do these I do monthly calls, and I just love being able to help people. Like, it's just like getting them that last 1% push of the way. They're like, I've got this pitch, but I don't know. Or I have to tell you, I actually have clients who will say, I saw this Haro pitch. I'm not sure. Here's what I'm thinking about saying. And I'm always like, yes, go. Yes,
don't wait.
Push them into the pool. I'm like, yes, go. This is great. Don't hesitate. Like, pair that knowledge and what we've discussed and what we talked about and all the great tools that we give you with action and just make things happen for you, because people do have these limiting mindsets and they don't realize, yes, you can appear in online publications. You can appear on podcasts. You can appear on television. It's all a matter of using these tools to take those next steps forward so that people can learn about you and learn about your business and be able to work with you and really to be seen as thought leaders in your industry. Because there's so many people out there, for all of us doing similar things to what we're doing. But if you can stand out from that crowd with publicity, with these amazing credibility markers, by building that know, like, and trust factor, using the power of the media, then you can absolutely go from being that hidden gem that you are to being a household name.
Oh, so good. And yeah, I remember when I first came out of corporate, became an entrepreneur, and I would see the people, other brand experts with the logos. And I was like, oh man, they're so far ahead of me. How am I, I know I'm good. I've been doing this for years, but I'm not known. And now, just being empowered in that way, and now having my own media logos. Now, even though I'm the same person, I have the same things. Now it's positioned me as that thought leader and that expert, which has done wonders for my business. And I'm sure you've seen it do wonders for tons of people that you've worked with.
Absolutely.
So I have a few more questions. The last one kind of specifically around, again, because in our limited time, we can't give away everything. But what would you say are some key principles to success in creating, we talk about a body of work. So once people have gotten over the fear, they've gotten, a few Haro pitches out, they've gotten a few features, and maybe they want to go for the gold, or they just want, to get on more podcasts or in front of influencers that could help support them. What would you say is really key to creating a body of work? Because do you see maybe people kind of like just pitching random things? Like, do you want to be selective and strategic, or do you just want to go for whatever you can get? Like, what would you say if you're trying to, get a lot of these things at once?
Yeah, I do encourage people to be selective and strategic, right? So if you're not, then you may end up attracting the wrong, you may end up not attracting your ideal customer or your ideal client, right? So you want to attract that ideal individual. So you do have to think about, who is it that I'm trying to attract? And think about that, it might be maybe more general, right? It be male versus female, but it may be age range, it may be other types of demographics, but think about who that ideal person is and what media they're consuming. So that's one way to think about things. The other thing that I want people to think about is, is think about their expert topics, right? What are those things that you are, there's like 3 or 4 things that you are an absolute expert in and that you could talk about for days and that you want to be known for, so that when people think about how to use media to get publicity, they think about you. When people think about, how, dealing with, lifestyle changes to find balance within your life, they think about you. When people think about how to get control of your finances after 40, they think about you. So whatever that whatever that is, you want to be really crystal clear on what those expert topics are, and then build a body of work around that, and seek out, when you're looking at those horror pitches or what have you, seek out opportunities where you can weave that kind of content in. And when you're thinking about stories that you could write, or anecdotes that you want to share, or success stories that you want to share, whether it's yourself or whether it's clients that you've worked with, you want to have a running list. You want to be able to capture those somewhere. As a journalist, I would always do that. I have this running list of story ideas, what months I think that they would be great for, outlets that I think that they would be great for, and I want people to be doing that as well. Maybe you create a Google Doc and you land them all there. Maybe you have just a note on your phone, like one tab note on your phone that's just like amazing story ideas, so that when they come to you when you're sitting in traffic, or when they come to you when you are, on your way walking down the street, or you overhear a conversation, and you're like, ooh, that's a pain point for someone. I could solve that. That's a story idea. When you're sitting in Starbucks or whatever, that you have some place where you're capturing all of this content. Because I can tell you, I have absolutely been places where I think, oh my God, that if you're very intentional about making sure that every time those ideas come to you, you are going to be writing them down and holding them somewhere, then you will be able to create that treasure trove of ideas that you can keep going back to and going back to. One just quick tip, if I can share with everyone who's watching,
please.
in terms of creating those ideas. So, or I'll share two. So one is, once you sign up for Haro, you're going to get a sense of the types of stories that journalists are interested in. And particularly as you look through and see the different outlets, and Haro has some amazing every time I look at it, I'm just like, wow, Cosmo's looking here, Forbes is looking here, Business Insider's looking here, Well and Good is looking for people. Like, it's big name publications, so don't sleep. Don't miss out on that. But as you look through these, even if it's not a topic that you feel like you could speak to, look at how they phrased it. Look at how they're kind of structuring their story. Look at the kinds of ideas they tend to be interested in, and then say, okay, where might I fit in there? And I'm not suggesting that you pitch those individuals alternate stories, because that's not encouraged. And also that's not going to get you to your desired outcome, but it will help you add to those treasure trove of ideas that you have on your separate G-Doc or on your notes tab on your phone. You'll think, ooh, that's interesting. Here's a different spin that I could take on that, or here's how that actually applies to my followers and what I would actually say to them. And then add that to the list. The other thing that I encourage people to do is, when you're thinking about your dream outlets, which is another very important thing to do as you're thinking about getting more and more publicity. When you're thinking about your dream outlets, be sure that you're following them on LinkedIn, on social media, so you can see what stories are popular there, what stories their editors are promoting and getting excited about, right? And then you get more of a sense of what that publication or that outlet is interested in. And you can say, even if you see a story and you say, oh, I could have written that, or oh, I wish I had done a podcast on that. That's great. Read the story, listen to the podcast, and think about how you would have done it differently. Maybe there's information in there that they didn't share that you're like, I can't believe they missed this one golden rule. Maybe there's information that they shared in there that you totally disagree with. And you're like, oh no, that's going to ruin somebody's life. They don't need to do that. They need to do things my way. So just because somebody may have come before you and spoken on your topic doesn't mean that they've shared the advice that you would share if your roles were different, if you would, swap Freaky Friday and it was your turn to be on that podcast or write that story. So always don't get discouraged. I've had this happen to me where somebody wrote a story that I was like, oh my God, that was my idea. And then I looked at it, or a book. Oh, that's the worst.
The book thing happened to me. I'm like, no, that was my book.
But then I ordered the book and I was like, oh my God, this is so academic. Oh my gosh, I wanted to do something that had a much broader appeal. Like, I don't agree with this person's take or their advice. So don't get discouraged if you find yourself in that position. take it one step further, just see where your points of differentiation are, where your opportunities might come out of that, and then take it as a good sign. People are interested in this topic. This outlet is really interested in talking about this. All right, there's still opportunities out there for me.
Ah, that is brilliant on so many levels, because I think it's just a reminder to stay in your own lane.
Yes.
Not worry about other people. Don't compare.
Don't compare.
You just have things a different way, which is so good. But also, you mentioned the ways on how to keep track, but just to have that awareness that, oftentimes we like, okay, I need to sit down and write a story. And you're like, nothing's coming. But if it's just in the back of your mind day to day, like you said, overhearing conversations or talking to your clients and jotting down their pain points, you're constantly in this creation and gathering mode. Then when it comes time, or you look at Haro and they're like, I need this. And you're like, oh, I have something similar in there. Like, let me pull that out. So that in itself is just gold, to just reframe that. It's not like, I'm going to sit down and write this article. Just have a list.
And these are things that you can do in a matter of minutes, right? These are things that don't have to take you hours and hours every day or hours and hours every week. So we're all busy entrepreneurs, right? We're getting our hustle on in many different ways. But these are things that you can spend 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day doing, and it still moves the needle because it makes you a more educated and a more informed person when you're pitching these different outlets. And it gets you to stand head and shoulders above other people who are pitching.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I learned that from you. I remember my first article I tried to write took forever, but the other day, something came up from one question that somebody emailed me. I literally sat down and wrote an article in like 20 minutes.
Love it.
And, I maybe didn't have time, but it probably would have taken me, like 2 weeks otherwise, because it wasn't in the heat of the moment. So good. So good.
Love it.
Well, again, I could talk to you about this all day because
Me too.
I'm learning along with what I already know from you.
It's my wheelhouse. I love it.
But good times have to end. So my final question to you before we tell viewers what amazing giveaway you have for them is, you're working with people in Impacting Millions, which I'm just so grateful for. And Selena is so lucky to have you. But just a little bit more back to you and your passion. This whole piece is about creating a ripple effect in the world. We need more positive vibes. We need more positive messages in the world. So what would you say is your personal ripple effect that you would love to create, your legacy that you want to leave, and your mission?
Oh my gosh, I love that. So for me, the ripple effect is 1000% media, right? It's being able to have this exponential impact. You have your one story idea, right? Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. You have this one, give me 1 second. Okay. You have this one story idea, right? And you think it's just this idea that you have. But then you turn it into an article that can be seen by hundreds of thousands of people, right? If that's not a ripple, I don't know what is. And when it comes to the health and well-being content that I'm so passionate about, but also the content that I help entrepreneurs craft, it creates this ability for people to read a 3-minute story, right? Or to listen to a podcast for 20 or 30 minutes, or to see a 2-minute segment on television and literally change their lives and maybe even save their lives. I'm most passionate about health, right? Because you can do a story around breast cancer or diabetes or heart disease and get somebody to go to the doctor, get someone to notice, signs and symptoms that they may have been ignoring. But there are also a lot of people who are drowning in financial debt, right? And maybe there's one piece of financial advice that you offer to people that gets them to, gets a little bit of that weight off of their shoulders and helps them see what might be possible in their lives, right? Or maybe there's one piece of business advice that you offer to somebody that gets them out of this place where they're thinking, oh my God, Q1 is ending and I'm not where I am with my numbers and I don't know why and what's going on. And maybe it's this one thing that I just read this story about. And so it's just absolutely absolutely incredible to me, the massive power that the media has and the ripple effect that the media has. Because again, it's not just me throwing a stone into the water, helping somebody craft their message and helping somebody figure out, here's what your story is. It's multiple stones that get thrown into that pond to create that ripple effect. Because how many of us have passed along a podcast to a friend and said, listen, I was, after our conversation last night, I think that you would really enjoy listening to this. I've done that a ton
Yes,
recently,
me too.
particularly for people who are having like difficulties with work. It's like, I think you need to listen to the episode, 97 of this podcast. Or how many times have you opened up your email to find someone saying, hey, here, I read this great story, you might want to check it out. Or open up your social media feed and people are constantly like posting stories that they've seen other places, to educate their friends and let them know, give them great advice. So the ripple effect that gets created with the media is just outstanding, because it's not that one stone that's just kind of creating all those circles. It's multiple stones that gets thrown into that ocean, and it can create a tidal wave.
So beautiful. I'm like getting chills, because it really is. And, every person, I think, especially in their business, they typically start at, they're mission based, and they want to really help people. And it's frustrating when, it's not happening or it's not getting out there. So beautiful. So to get people started, we have, or you have, not we, a publicity checklist that you and Selena put together, and the link will be below. Do you want to talk just a little bit about that quickly, and then we will wrap up? But you guys do not want to miss out on this.
Yeah. No, it's a fantastic checklist to go down to like get yourself ready to get these massive wins with publicity. Some of them are some things that we talked about over the course of our conversation today, but there's a lot more in there that's just it's gonna build your confidence. It's going to get you into position to get some wins and to make the most of those wins that you get. And that's what we're all about. It's just helping you get that megaphone to your message so that you can share all this critical information that you have with people and help them change their lives for the better and impact millions.
Yay. Yeah. Thank you again, Lynya, so much for being here. That was such a value-packed interview. I hope everybody watching enjoyed it. Definitely download that checklist below, and keep watching to learn more.